I had this old gentleman come and totally nervous and not believing in chiropractic. And I'm like, I'm not a religion. And I got him better. And then he told his wife when she had a complaint, he was like, I don't know how she does it, but you might have a back pain, but it's probably coming from your big toe or something,
Scratch Entrepreneur. True stories of remarkable people who dropped everything to turn an idea into a healthy, profitable business. There's no one value more important to running a healthy, profitable business than being yourself. Maybe that wasn't true 50 years ago. Maybe molding to the established norms was how you succeeded. But not today. Today, authenticity is everything. You don't have to be polished or perfect, but you do have to be real. Don't get me wrong, if being yourself means wearing pajamas out into public and you're the CEO of a high-end fashion company, you may not stay CEO for long. But you may be the next marketing director of Pajamagram. Sorting still happens, of course. We aren't simply immune to the inequality and prejudice, the unspoken hierarchies of old. But now more than ever, being yourself matters. Today's heroes are YouTube vloggers acting stupid and tech moguls that are flying to Mars. In politics, one of the world's most pure marketing experiences, athletes are speaking truth to power, and power is saying whatever it damn well pleases whenever it wants, for better or worse. Authenticity, whether wholesome or heresy, obnoxious or enlightening, is winning. And in the long term, that's a good thing. If everyone is being real, we can at least make decisions based on what's presented. There's nothing more confusing than being told you're eating a hot dog when it's actually a pickle. The work of today's guest is at the heart of authenticity. She's an analyzer, a healer, a medicine woman of sorts. She's trying to move an industry that strayed far from real into the depths of money and greed and abuse, back to a simple mission of helping all of us live a happier, healthier life. Karin Drummond is a chiropractor, which I learned means a lot of different things, but to her it's simple. She is a fixer both before and after catastrophe. In our conversation, she shares the childhood that set her path towards medicine, what's wrong with medicine in America, and simple steps we can take to live a stronger, healthier life. In the end, she sets both mind, body, and spirit into, alignment. We're glad you joined us. Hey, this is Jeremy Goodrich, owner of Shine Insurance and your host for the Scratch Entrepreneur podcast. We are going to talk body, human body, medicine, chiropractic, all kinds of stuff. We have Karin Drummond, owner of Drummond Chiropractic, with us here today. And Karin, I'm pumped about our conversation and really looking forward to chatting.
Ditto.
All right. So let's dig in a little bit. Whenever we start up, I always want to kind of back up a little bit and just get to know where you come from and what your story is. I know you grew up in British Columbia, right?
Correct.
And can you tell us a little bit about just maybe one story that gives us a sense of, what living on the West Coast, but the West Coast of Canada was like?
And many moons ago. Yeah, I grew up in Tofino, which is on Vancouver Island. It's was a small fishing village of just 500 residents and would double in the summer. And now I went there and there's a stoplight there. It's blows my mind. What is that? Yeah. And there's a lot more parking lots. But yeah, back then I was one of 3 white girls in our little village elementary school. The rest were Native American. Mm. And if I stayed through high school, we would have had to take a bus to a different town because our town got the hospital. So that gives you an idea of how small this was.
Wow. That's so really tiny town right on the coast. And so I used to be an art teacher. And one of the types of art that I just loved, and that kind of made me dig into the culture of the people and the story behind them, was the Northwest Native American culture. And so it sounds like you were right in the middle of that community.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Got to go to powwows and everything.
Did folks realize the power of their own artwork? Was it more about storytelling, just sort of useful elements, or was the visual power kind of known?
Well, back then, it was, I think, more seen as a tourist draw, a way to make income. But I feel over the last few decades, especially, it's evolved into this reawakening of the old ways and taking more value of the cultural part of it. And it's really interesting how the old has merged with the new, like how they've taken that old way of drawing and modernized it. It's just fascinating. And my house is full of the art. I just love it. It's beautiful.
So you're rooted in the culture and the connection with the spiritual world, the connection with really Mother Earth and these kinds of things. Were you culturally connected as a kid?
No, I think as a child, it was just part of normal life. I don't think I really recognized it for how it was influencing me at the time. And then I'll tell a story about when I was a child, how I had living on the beach, fresh air and local food, and everything was natural. I didn't have TV, or we did have a television, and we would watch either hockey or the news, and that was it. Like, I didn't see very many commercials, so I didn't have the same influences that a lot of people have today. And then when I moved to the quote-unquote big city, which was still smaller than Bedford, then I was kind of more exposed to that, but at a later age. And also, that change also affected me and my health. I went from a really healthy kid to so sick that they literally said I was dying. And as it turns out, it was a form of irritable bowel, basically. And I went to doctors after doctors and got poked and prodded. And finally, they said, "You have irritable bowel syndrome." And I'm like, after all that, I'm like, you're telling me basically that my bowels are irritated and you don't know why. So that wasn't very helpful. And they didn't have a really good solution other than more medications that just made me more sick. So my parents signed a waiver letting me leave the hospital. And back then that was a big deal. That wasn't a normal standard procedure, explaining that I was likely going to die if they took me out of the hospital. And we went to the quacks, you know, the chiropractors, the people who, you know, delved in the herbs. And lo and behold, within a month, I started gaining weight again, started being more healthy. And the kicker for me wasn't that they didn't have an answer, but that when I came to them saying, hey, back to the medical doctors, you know, this worked for me. It could have been a coincidence of time, sure, but I was really, really sick for over a year. And within a month was a whole lot better. So let's explore this. All three of the specialists were like, oh, you finally just got better. That's great.
How old were you when this happened?
11 to 12.
So you really went from modern kind of the type of medicine that we're all told to go to, and there were no solutions there. And then their solution was like, well, you just got irritable bowel. And then you went to more of an herbal approach, more of a like spiritual, natural approach. And that's helped to solve the issue much more quickly.
Right.
So there's an obvious connection there.
Right.
Because as you grow up, as you grow older, now you are a chiropractor, and maybe I'm moving forward too fast, but there's just the natural connection, right? That you experienced this as a young person, and then you grow up to kind of do that for other people now. Would that be a fair connection to make?
Exactly. Yeah. I was always going to be a medical doctor for as long as I can remember, because I wanted to help people. And when I became a patient, I realized a medical doctor wasn't what I thought it was. And it was actually more what chiropractors were, because they were dealing with the whole body, not just, oh, here's a sickness, here's a medicine. It was more like, oh, you got to eat a little healthier, move a little more, or release this tension. And that just jived a lot more with my idea of what a doctor was.
And also, in some ways, your cultural upbringing because of, you know, the Native American culture that you were around. Those doctors that helped you when you were 11, were they specifically like Native American doctors, or was it mixed?
No, they were all actually Canadian, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, they weren't Native American.
So it was more like the naturopathic approach to medicine.
Yeah. But there was a lot more in my community because they were drawn to the Native culture. But the Native culture was very separate from the white culture. Yeah.
Okay. So let's dig into the chiropractic work you do now. When a lot of people hear about a chiropractor, they kind of feel what I think of as like the person that cracks your back and then tells you to come back in a couple weeks or something like that. How
much is that stereotype right, and what's missing from that description?
A lot of people don't understand that in the chiropractic profession, there's actually two schools of thought, and the gap is kind of deepening. I went to Western States Chiropractic College, and that's on the West Coast. And in Oregon, we could do minor surgery, OBGYN. It was very medically oriented, but held on to the chiropractic techniques. And I chose that school because I was already well versed in the philosophy of chiropractic, and I wanted to study more the science of it. And then when I moved to Bloomington, Indiana, I found the chiropractors here, especially back then, were more what we call straight chiropractors, where they just, they adjust what's fixated and then have you come back again when it's on a very frequent basis. Versus where my style of chiropractic, I was like, okay, yeah, you're stiff in the neck. Let's find out why. And let's remove that so you don't need to come back couple times a week forever. And the newer age chiropractic, it's growing in that they're doing more muscle work, like with the ART technique, which is an active release technique, and more into the physical therapy of chiropractic. So that part's definitely growing, and which is good for me because that's kind of where I'm. Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm hearing in the two different ways is one is like a very physical response to a problem. So we're going to respond to a problem by doing something physical to adjust your body and see how that works. And the more Western approach may have some elements of that for sure, but is ultimately looking more at, okay, what's the cause of the problem and what can we change about the way that you maybe work out, the way that you sit, the way that you eat, the way that you behave as a whole, your whole life.
And another separator too is we're not just neck and back doctors. Like I said, we were doing surgery, we're doing OBGYN, we were primary care physicians. In fact, there's a term that they're trying to make more standard is a chiropractic physician versus if someone who just manipulates, that's more like a chiropractic technician.
You've always seen yourself as more of a holistic, maybe physician is the wrong word, but kind of, more of a holistic approach to a human. So if someone comes to your chiropractor, they're not just going to get an adjustment and be responsive. What is their experience?
Well, basically, we sit down and I learn as much as I can about them to see, because you might think, oh, I'm somebody who has headaches. And I might find out, oh, actually, well, you have a short leg that makes you crooked and you keep tilting your head, and that's why you're getting these headaches.
Yeah.
So I know I've converted people. I had this old gentleman come in totally nervous and not believing in chiropractic, and I'm like, I'm not a religion, and I got him better. And then he told his wife when she had a complaint, he was like, I don't know how she does it, but you might have a back pain, but it's probably coming from your big toe or something.
Right, it's all connected.
Right.
I went to a chiropractor when I lived in Vermont, and I've been to a lot of different kinds, but this one, so she would never actually touch me at all. It was all energy work.
Oh, wow.
Completely, I would lay on a table, and she did ask, what was going on, what my things were and all that kind of stuff. And then would do just pure energy work. And I kind of didn't believe in it and thought it was kind of BS. And my wife was kind of saying, you need to go. But it did kind of help. But I've always looked back at that and been like, I think that must be on the extreme of the spectrum of how people do it, because I believe in energy for sure, but I'm not sure that was all that needed to be done. And
what I always tell people too is I want you to have an active part of your healthcare. I don't want you coming to me and I will do it if you want to. It's your money, but but I want you to be understanding why you have your complaints so you can make the changes so that you're not so dependent on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. So what are some common complaints that people come to you with, and maybe quick solutions? I know that's maybe a loaded.
I'm reaching my 10,000th patient coming up soon, but I've been in this town since 2000, and I think the word's out that if you have something that people aren't figuring out, go see Karin, see what she has to say. She'll have something to say about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's only 2 cents worth, but sometimes I've had one conversation that saved an 11-year-old from having a colonoscopy, or a bag on her side bag. Wow. They were going to cut out her colon.
Wow.
So one conversation.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you were really looking at the whole thing from a holistic perspective and handling it that way. What does a bad day as a chiropractor look like?
When someone comes in and I take one look at them and get their history, and I'm like, you need surgery. That's a bad day.
So when you can't help,
Yeah.
ultimately when what you can provide isn't going to help.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a favorite success story? Like somebody who you just described that.
Yeah, I had that one.
Yeah.
And one thing I do like is when someone comes in and they don't even realize they have something really serious going on. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you need to go and see your medical doctor because you have this going on.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know. They're just coming in for a tune-up.
I worry about, and I'm kind of a worrier, so just throw that out. But I worry about that like every day. Like, because
that's not healthy.
What's funny is when you hear about people experiencing terrible health, cancer or something like that,
Right.
like so much of it is about when they figured it out.
Right.
And if you figure it out late, it's
Sometimes
much worse.
too late, yeah.
And if they figure it out really early, then a lot of times you can address it in a different way.
Right.
For me, I'm always like, there's probably something wrong. There's probably something, and it's like if I catch it now. And so how does someone balance not freaking out and being a hypochondriac at the same time, like responding to their body?
Right. And that's why it's really important to have a good healthcare partner, be it a chiropractor, a massage therapist, and getting your regular checkups. I'm assuming you have a primary care physician and you're doing your checkup. So then just have faith in that. Like you've been checked out, you're fine, and don't worry about it to the next checkup because stress is the number one cause of dis-ease. And if you stress about it, it's like, that self-fulfilling prophecy, like don't go there. Just have faith that you're healthy. I mean, be grateful every day. You have all your fingers and thumbs and toes and, and we have a roof over our head and food on the table. Everyone's fine. That's your mantra. And the super volcano did not erupt today. It's the best day ever. Like,
no, totally. I totally agree with you and battle that a little bit, where it's like, okay, the world must be ending soon and I just don't know it. And then it's like, that's a stupid way to look at life.
Right. I say, yes, there is probably an asteroid out there that's going to hit us one day, but you know what? It didn't happen today. Yeah. So let's party.
Right on. So, okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dig into medicine a little bit. I mean, we've kind of gone there in some ways, but we're going to go a little deeper and look at it's particularly American medicine, where it's at right now, what that means for us, and what maybe you hope we see in the future as to where things go. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Cool.
Scratch Entrepreneur is brought to you by the New Home Buyer's Guide. If you've thought for even a second about buying a house, the entire process just got way simpler. Check it out at newhomebuyersguide.net.
All right, we are back with Karin Drummond of Drummond Chiropractic. Karin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna read this quote. When I was looking at this quote the last couple of days, I was like, this is too long. So I'll try and make it as quick as possible. But it's by Daryl Calkins. And no, I'm not going to read this quote. Basically, the quote, what he talks about is that our health institutions, our hospitals, our doctors, everything that sets up American culture is based on the concept that we have to be reactive to bad things happening. And lots of people are making lots of money responding to that. The medicine companies, the doctors, like everybody at every level is making money off of the concept that we don't do anything until something bad happens and then we respond.
Because we have to at that point and desperate and we'll pay anything to get out of that situation.
That was the quote, the really long quote that I didn't just read. So my question and what I kind of wanted to dig into if you were open to it is, why are we so infatuated with responding to catastrophe instead of supporting what I think I've heard you say is what you're all about, really, and that's looking at the whole picture of your health.
Right, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah. So why are we so infatuated with that? Why?
I think some of it is because, when we're young and healthy and we hurt ourselves, we see ourselves heal. And so our bodies just heal. And it always amazes me that people spend so much money on their cars or things but they won't spend, $60 to $80 for a massage or even pay their copay for an adjustment because there's nothing wrong with them. Or they just come in and then once their pain's gone, they're done. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I educate them. And I think too, is because we are told every day in commercials, or at least I'm told, I don't have TV at home, but I kept that. But, but with the ads are like, if you have this problem, you can take this pill, and if you have that problem, you can take that pill, and it's magical, and then the underlying message is like, and you can die taking that pill, but that's kind of like the small print. Right. And I remember when I was younger too, thinking, okay, if anything goes wrong, I'll just take a pill and it'll go away. I mean, that's nothing new, but it's just there's a lot more pills now.
That's a good point. So if we think about the world and life in that, well, yeah, just because I'm not exercising or because I'm eating bad or whatever, when something, when I have a heart attack, I'll just be able to get a stent or something like that. And I'm not saying certainly that everyone who experiences those things was looking at it that way, but our culture sort of sets us up to be able to make that excuse so that then we can rationalize not doing anything about it when there isn't a problem.
And even in our school system, when they're calling ketchup a fruit and French fries a vegetable, I mean, there's a problem there. And and soda pops, I mean, that's a whole nother beast. And it's so expensive to eat healthy. I mean, organic's more expensive, and so that's another thing. You got to spend so much money. It feels like so much money to buy organic foods and eat healthy and go to gyms and exercise. That's another cost. But if it just takes one surgery, and you could have had a lifetime of healthy foods and gym memberships and taking time to get your sleep, but that you don't think about, in the future, I might have to spend that money right now. I got to save it now.
Yeah. I think there's another element too, which is it's that out of sight, out of mind, like as business owners, we experience this a lot, right? Like the squeaky wheel is what we're dealing with.
Exactly.
And as soon as we fix that, even if it was just a patch, even if it didn't really like solve the issue, once it's not squeaking anymore, we just forget about it. And so maybe health in some ways, we fall into that same trap where...
Yeah, that's a good analogy, yeah.
Yeah, my knee isn't causing any problems for me. And even though arthritis is building up in it and I probably should be doing things to work out or whatever, I don't know it at this point. So it's out of sight, out of mind. There wasn't a question there.
I'm listening. It's a good story.
So like if we could change it around, if you could make changes, sweeping changes, it doesn't matter what.
I would start with the schools.
Yeah.
Their physical education program, it's sports oriented. They learn about all the rules in sports. And I found that there really wasn't as much about nutrition. And then what they were teaching my kids, I didn't necessarily agree with. So the food pyramid, everyone knows, is so wrong, right? But the thing they need to understand too is there's no one diet that's good for everybody. We all have different needs. We all have different sensitivities. The extreme example is that's why some people are sensitive to gluten. Some people can handle it, or peanuts and can't. And so you got to find what works for you. And there's really no education on that I've seen.
So it's about physical education that isn't just about sports. Obviously, sports are fine, but totally driven towards sports and the rules of games and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Leaves out actually understanding your body and how your body is working and growing and getting more muscular.
And even just how they have to sit in those chairs, and they're taking away recess and shortening lunch. And I mean, lunch should be a whole nice hour. You can chew your food and make better choices because you're not in a rush, and you should have your recesses. I say there should be like 3 or 4 recesses, learn faster, play harder.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was a teacher at Harmony for a long time at a school here in Bloomington, Indiana, and we had an hour of recess of lunch that was really uncontrolled in any way. And there are a lot of things I complain about that hour of uncontrolled time, but there are a lot of things I loved too. And a lot of them are what you're talking about, just the free play, getting all the energy out. And then kind of off topic, but the social side of when you've got an hour to just like do stuff, you end up in conflict with friends or figuring out, so like all the different social elements that happened, and people, kids would come and get me to help solve a problem or whatever, like it ended up being a really nice microcosm in that hour of just the human experience.
Right. And that is a big part of health too. I mean, you cannot have a healthy body if your mind is unwell. It's mind, body, spirit. They're all interconnected.
Yeah. And so I guess that adds to it really is, being able to look at all those pieces. And then you threw in as a part, not just the physical health, but also the food element, which you're right. In some ways it's a little bit hard because of expense. Is that the biggest problem in schools? Just like how much it would cost to...
Well, I don't know the answer to that one. That's outside of our, but I just know from like having had, I mean, my kids are now homeschooled, but I couldn't handle my kids sitting for that long length of time and not having time to eat. And I mean, that's just elemental. I mean, that's health over that.
Basic. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you change is schools. Just kind of
I think that would be the root source, right? For the next generation. Mm-hmm. I don't know if, it's harder to change as you get older, but it's possible, but
yeah, but you do set those systems and those ways of doing things there at a young age, so that makes a lot of sense. As far as in the world that you work, in the chiropractic world, what's the relationship with the health insurance and with how all that is set up and connected?
Right. Chiropractic has been proven it does work. And I always say, if you want to know how risky something is, see how much it costs to insure it. Like for me to get disability insurance, oh my gosh, that's really expensive because I jump on people for a living and I'm a little female. And but for malpractice insurance for chiropractors, it's super cheap because it's super safe and very effective. And insurance companies are realizing if we let people get, 12 to 20 visits a year, they're less prone to get things like surgeries and they're not taking as many expensive pharmaceutical drugs. And so that's why I think most insurance companies now will let people go to see a chiropractor.
So you're seeing a lot more coverage.
Oh yeah.
Of your work.
Yeah.
Like from 5 years ago to like how long has that been changing?
Well, it was better 20 years ago in the fact that they paid better for the services. And now they realize, because we're bringing you all these patients and we're a group, then we can just pay you a little less per your patient. So per service, it's gone down. It's starting to improve again. But what I'd like to see is Medicare changing because they only pay for the adjustment. And so if you have Medicare, you're going to have to pay for any other services out of pocket. Your secondary won't cover that. Does that answer the question? Or?
Yeah. I was kind of looking at just the relationship of insurance to chiropractic because obviously, your insurance policy has a lot to do with how you deal with your health.
Right.
If you have something that's even not super expensive and it's not covered, there's some kind of mentality that we come from that it's harder to say yes to doing that if you have to pay out of pocket.
Absolutely, yeah. And you feel like you're already paying this premium, so you want to use a service that they pay for. So that's why even though I get paid less, I still stayed on those panels because I wanted to be accessible to those patients because if I was off of those panels, they'd have to pay a lot more. Yeah. So. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about pain. Can we do that?
Oh, yeah. My favorite topic.
So is there such thing as like a pain feedback loop? Like how do you see people experiencing pain?
Okay, so that's a really loaded question. And there's a lot of different philosophies and hypotheses out there. But in my experience, there's different kinds of pain. And this is Dr. Karen's version of pain, just to be clear.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But there's a core kind of pain. Like if you've ever had a really serious, like, disc herniation. I had the pleasure after a car accident of having 4, and that made me realize, there's different levels of pain. I call that core pain because when you're injured next to your spinal cord, that shoots a direct pain to your brain. Now, if you get hurt in your finger, for example, there's 2 nerves, one to your spinal cord and then one to your brain. I'm kind of oversimplifying, but then there's a opportunity there to dull the pain. Does that make sense?
Between
the 2 nerves.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you notice too, if you hurt yourself and you rub that area, it feels less painful. That's because there's proprioceptive nerves that close the pain gates that make it less painful.
So you're stopping the pain on that first nerve, or at least some of it, a little bit of it before it hits the main one that actually goes to your brain and makes you say, oh, that hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
So that's kind of a simplified way to explain that kind of pain.
I like simple.
Yeah. But then there's also the kind of pain, the chronic kind of pain. And that's, there's a lot of different debates on that one. But I feel like once you get into that state of pain, it's hard to shut that off because it's like it just loops on itself. Not to take away from the reality of the cause of the pain, but it's a different kind of pain in the fact it's generally not as sharp. It's generally you can start ignoring it, but it's always there and exhausting. So
the question is some of it like placebo almost, and is some
you mean
of it
like phantom?
Real? Is that what you're saying? Where
because it's sending pain even on times when it maybe shouldn't have.
Oh, I see. So it's not phantom. It's real.
It's real.
Your nerve is actually sending that. It's just whether it should have, whether there was anything to tell it to.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
phantom is more like if you cut off your hand, you still feel your finger pain.
Right.
Because but that nerve is really sending, hey, because all it knows to say is finger pain, and it's hurt at the wrist, so it's screaming at the brain, finger pain, finger pain.
Right, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like obviously those nerves are still there. It's just that wherever they ended before isn't there.
Right.
But they don't know that.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm sure people jump on that and like discredit. They say, "Oh, she doesn't know chocolate." You know,
I think that makes total sense. I mean, there's like you have nerves. So then, what's the other argument? What's the opposite? I don't even get why anyone would have an opposite perspective.
Well, not on that one particularly, but on the chronic pain one. That's the one that people are not. It's really not well understood, and there's so many new articles coming out with different ideas as why people can't get out of their state of pain when we can't explain it anymore.
So it's like almost
like fibromyalgia, for example.
Okay.
Oh, I'll talk about that. Again, this is the Dr. Karin version.
well, that's fine. I mean, there's obviously different perspectives.
Right, because a lot of medical doctors are saying, oh, it's a nerve condition. Your nerves are hyperactive, and that's why it hurts to touch. What I believe it is.
Can you tell us what fibromyalgia? Like, what's the experience? What's the symptom of fibromyalgia?
People with fibromyalgia have pain in all quadrants of the body, and you can barely touch them because it hurts them so bad, and they have fatigue. They're exhausted all the time. Basically, that's what that is. Okay. And we don't really, and there's no real known cause, and so the current hypothesis that I disagree with is that it's just irritated nerves. Yes, the nerves are irritated, but I believe it's because we have a system called the lymphatic system. And how do I explain this without a video? Basically, there's a heart that pumps blood out to your tissues, and then fluid leaves the blood to bring nutrients to the cells. And then most of that fluid makes it back to the veins where it gets back to the circulatory system.
That's a cycle. Okay. Got it.
Not all the fluid made it back. This extra fluid has its own system called the lymphatic system, and it has vessels too. No heart because it's a one-way system. So each vessel squishes the fluid along, and there's a valve that stops that backwashing. So it can only go one direction. And if we don't move, because when movement squishes it along too, because it only can go one way. So when the muscle contracts, it squishes that fluid along.
This is not your blood system. This is your lymphatic system.
Exactly.
Just little tiny, same things as vessels?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a little different. In fact, they have valves in them that stop the backwashing, and there's muscles that contract more. I mean, they're kind of like veins, but a little more helping with the flow.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. And if you aren't moving, which our culture, we don't move enough anymore, then the vessels have to do all the work, right?
Right.
And they can kind of get a little slow. And if you have valves that don't start getting hurt and don't stop the backwashing too much, then your tissues are going to hold a little more of that toxic fluid. And this fluid is filled with all the metabolic waste like lactic acid. That's acid, it burns, right? So if we're not moving and they're getting built up in this toxic fluid, that's going to start hurting to touch.
So the theory is that could be where some of those pains come from.
Yeah, and the whole that's why it affects the whole body. And we just recently, I think it's been a few years now, discovered that there's even lymph for the brain tissue. And that would explain why they're tired. And so I think it's a lymphatic backup problem. And that's why exercise helps, but it's hard to get exercising when you hurt and you're tired.
Right.
So it's hard to break that cycle.
And so that's a really good example, actually, of where just looking a little deeper at how your body works. Like maybe someone with fibromyalgia says, "No, you're wrong. I've been working out, I've been trying, and that hasn't been solving it." But certainly, you could start with that,
right?
And then that potentially could address the situation,
right?
And if not, then you've kind of ruled that out or addressed that, and then you kind of go to whatever.
And you have to think too, you don't want to be putting new toxins in the body, like our food is so toxic, right? And especially if they're soda pop drinkers.
Totally.
And think about too, like how much sleep are you getting? Because that's a big part of our healing time. And so it's multifactorial, definitely. You can't just do one thing and expect it to be 100% better.
So if someone's having a pain like that, you're going to suggest, like, obviously doing some exercising, do more of that physical work. Are there things you can do from a traditional chiropractic standpoint of adjustments, things like that?
It'd be, adjustment anywhere where they're restricted. But when it comes to fibromyalgia, I do more lymphatic drainage. and I teach them how to do their own lymphatic drainage.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'm doing Facebook Lives every Tuesday at noon, and I've recorded how to do it for the lower extremities. Oh, and also for breast tissue.
Okay, cool. So if somebody is listening and like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? Yeah. You go to your Facebook and you see some of those Facebook Lives or Tuesdays.
Drummond Chiropractic Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Well, like when we get these adjustments, like I come in, let's just be real traditional. Like my back hurts.
Yeah.
And I come in and, I get an adjustment and I feel better.
You want to know why?
Like what happened? Yeah.
Well, a lot's happened, but basically put, when most back pain, I mean, if it's your traditional, oh, my back's stiff and sore and aching, it's because you probably haven't moved enough or you lifted something too heavy and you squished your bones too close together.
My bones.
Your bones of your spine.
In my spine. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And there's discs in between there and there's facet joints in between there. And what we do as chiropractors is we quickly separate those bones again. And the reason why you hear a popping sound is there's fluid in those joints and they've been under pressure. So you imagine we'll use soda pop again.
Yeah.
A soda pop is water is a fluid under pressure. And when you release it, you open up that can, bubbles come out of solution and they pop. Well, just like the fluid in your discs and your facets, they are under pressure. You separate those bones quickly. You've decreased the barometric pressure and bubbles come out of solution and they're popping and there's more space between your bones. And traditionally, chiropractic would talk about, oh, we straightened your spine up. But actually, it's more we've loosened your spine up so it can settle in a better place. There's less pressure on the nerves. There's less pressure on the blood flow, on the lymphatic drainage. I mean, there's so many things that go on. And they also found that endorphins are released when you do this pop. That's why for 20 minutes you feel absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That's the short-term relief. But the long-term relief is because we improve the function of those joints.
That makes sense. I totally get it. It created another question in my head that's like totally, well, not totally unrelated, but somewhat unrelated.
Bring it.
My 12-year-old loves to crack his knuckles and it drives me nuts and I tell him not to. But using that description, I was like, well, maybe cracking your knuckles is actually good for you. So is cracking your knuckles good for you?
It is. There's even a study on it because the old wife. I'm sorry. Well, okay. There's a flip side to that. So the first part I'll say is they did a study because we used to believe that if you popped your knuckles, you're going to get thick knuckles, right? That causes arthritis. But they did a study in an old folks home where they would see the ones that popped their knuckles versus the one who didn't, and the ones who didn't were the ones with osteoarthritis.
Dang it.
Now, the popping doesn't help for things like inflammatory arthritis, like rheumatoid. But on the flip side, if you're popping every 20 minutes to an hour, there's no proof that it's bad, but I can't see that being good. Like no medicine is good in excess, right?
Right.
So I tell people, if you pop something and you feel good and and that relief lasts for more than 20 minutes to an hour, then you're getting more than just that endorphic release. But if you're popping every 20 minutes to an hour, you're just addicted to that endorphic release. Stop it. Just limit it to a few times a day.
All right, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that description. Okay, so we've been talking medicine and chiropractic and all those kinds of things, and we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to dig into business a little bit, just like owning a business and what that's like for you, okay?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Scratch Entrepreneur is brought to you by Shine Insurance. At Shine, our goal is simple: to change the way you feel about insurance. Start that evolution today at shineinsurance.com.
All right, we're back with Karin Drummond of Drummond Chiropractic. Karin, again, thanks so much for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you own a business with your husband, Dallas, right?
Yes.
And how long have you all owned the business?
Since 2000, so over 18 years.
Okay. So what are a couple of pieces, if you're talking to someone who is at that early end of those 18 years, in the first few years that you all owned that business, what's some advice you might give to them from your veteran status as an 18-year business owner?
Yeah, because literally, when we graduated from chiropractic college, we moved here and opened up shop fresh out of school. And basically, it was like learning how to swim by jumping in a deep pool.
Yeah.
And the reason why we didn't drown is my husband got a job working for a medical doctor up in Indianapolis, and we learned a lot of the business aspects through his experiences up there because this medical doctor was a huge clinic and had systems in place, and knew how to do billing of insurance, because we were thinking, oh, that's really complicated. I don't know if we can take insurance, but quickly realized we had to, because as mentioned earlier, if someone has insurance, they want to be able to use it.
So you were going to you learned from the medical doctor. That medical doctor kind of taught you some of the basics from the beginning, like taking insurance. What were a couple of other things that you learned from the experience working with that doctor in Indianapolis?
One thing we also learned is what not to do. He kind of was running the chiropractic side like a mill. He had these standards of care where most people, if they came in, they could expect to be seen at least 12 times and at least 5 times a week the first week. And it wasn't very personalized. So because our bills were paid by my husband, I had the liberty to be like, I don't want to be like that. In our small town of Bloomington, I want people to come in. They're going to have very personalized care. I'm going to teach them how they don't need to see me. And in the long run, it was the perfect thing to do, because I quickly got a really good reputation in town and grew from there. And all from word of mouth. This is before the internet, and we didn't have social media, and a Yellow Page ad was super expensive. And I think I just advertised in it once, like for the first year, and didn't advertise after that.
I think you broke down something really important there, because I think that there's 2 roads, especially service providers can go down. And one is like the road that's going to make you the most money. And the other, and they usually aren't the same road, maybe occasionally they're the same road, but usually the other is the road that's going to, you're really going to help people. And those are 2 separate roads a lot of the time. I know in our business it is, and it sounds like in your business it is too. And so you went down the road that was like, I want to help people.
Exactly.
And you used the fact that your husband was making money as sort of almost an excuse to go down that road, because it's like, well, I don't need to make the money. But really, I think you went down the right road either way. You go down that road, and then what you got for it was that referral network, that group of people that said, oh my gosh, you've got to go check out Karin. She's changed my life. I can tell she's not trying to take advantage of me. She's really trying to help me. And that's how the snowball gets rolling, you know? And I think the way that other guy in Indianapolis, maybe he was doing fine. I don't know. I like being able to sleep at night more than
you took the words out of my. I was going to say those exact words, and you said it before I could.
Yeah. So you learned really just to take good care of people. That was one of the lessons you learned at the beginning.
But what I wish I did earlier, because I guess that was kind of our mentor, even though it wasn't the same style. We did learn some things, and then we kind of did our own thing for many years. And then I was in a car accident in 2014, and that was a big wake up call for me, because it's always been me, myself, and I, and my husband, and we're making enough money, we're happy. But it made me realize, what happens if I do get hurt? How are we going to, I mean, you still have to make something. So I wanted to know, okay, I need to hire another chiropractor. There's room in my office for 2. But I had no idea how to hire, how to recruit, how any of that aspect of that part of it, how to train them. And so I went ahead and hired a mentor, and I found a guy in Australia, believe it or not. And
this is like 2005, 2006?
No, this was 2015.
Okay, so more recently.
Yeah,
I was going to say it was a little harder then to find somebody in Australia.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, this was just a couple of years after my car accident, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to run my business more like a business without losing the Dr. Karin flavor, right?
Yeah.
And all the local mentors in America really were like, okay, this is how you make more money out of your patients. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I just want to know how to hire, fire, and, the business part of things. And
you want to know how to scale the thing you're already doing.
Exactly.
It's like, how do I scale what I have here?
Exactly. Yeah. And then Tristan came along, and he just changed my world. He said, you're absolutely replicable. You just need systems in place. And this is how you do your interviews. Because I didn't even know what to ask in an interview. Like, all I care, are you a great chiropractor? Like, do you...
But everyone's going to say yes to that.
Exactly. And you can adjust and you can, give advice, but is your culture the same as my culture? Because you can train them to do things, but you can't change their personality.
Are there any things you did just in that hiring process to focus in on that that changed the people that you ended up with in the end?
Oh, absolutely. Because I had hired a recruiter as well, and she was just throwing everybody at me that was willing to work in Indiana. And it wasn't anything like what I was looking for. And he showed me how to show my flavor in an ad.
Like from the very start.
Yeah. And he also said, do a video. Especially with the new generation. I mean, they're going to want to see you and see your place and get kind of your flavor. And so I did that video. Within 2 weeks, I found my current associate. So
tell us more about that video. So you how did you do it? What did you create?
Basically, it was saying what I like, what I am, what I'm looking for, what I'm not looking for, what I'm not going to ask of my associate. He said, show them everything, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, I love it. And so I just totally bluntly honest about what I was expecting. And because this is my baby. I mean, this is my office that I've had from the ground up for 18 years. So this is what it is. And if this is not the kind of chiropractic that you're looking for, then this isn't a good fit for us. And I'm sure there's a fit somewhere else for you. So it was more, I'm looking more for the good fit.
I really love that. I think that was a great approach. And then just to finish out the image in folks' minds, so you created that video, and then where did it go? Where'd you put it out?
Oh, I just put it on YouTube. And then in all the schools, I put in the little brief description of what we're looking for. And then if you are interested so far, check out this video.
So you did some kind of advertising at this chiropractic schools.
Yeah, because every school has like a free classified ad for their students looking for jobs.
And I think that's good advice. And even if your industry doesn't have a school like yours has, you can find where are the people that are most likely to be interested in the work that we're doing here.
Right.
And like for insurance is there are very few schools that have insurance programs. But you can find people who are interested in sort of more detail-oriented work.
Right. And not to give away all his secrets, but there is one thing I thought was really slick about what he does too, is he has a 15-minute phone call interview where you literally scheduled, because I'm a talker. And so these interviewees would call and I'd be like,
it's like hanging out for an hour.
And I know they're not a good fit, yet I just still wasted our time. So it was a very scripted 15 minutes. And if they pass that, then you can spend the hour with them.
That's great.
That saved me so much time.
Well, and I think a lot of folks say, even after that, so if you spend the hour and then you narrow it down to one person, then even when you hire them, it's like, I'm hiring you for a month.
Right.
Even that is limited, which feels really, I've never actually said that to someone, but I get why that's powerful because someone says, okay, this is a trial period.
Right.
And then you have an out if it doesn't work and everybody, moves on with their lives. Like, you want to have the people in your business that reflect you,
who want to be there.
Oh yeah, totally. For the right reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not all about the money. So that's another thing I had in there too. Like, I want you to want to be a chiropractor. I went to work to get a break, I love my job.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Well, so that's some great hiring advice. As far as how to scale away from just you, that was another piece of advice that you got. Have you figured out, I guess it's hiring the right people. Maybe that's the step one. Are there other pieces to the puzzle that are real important?
Well, I realized very quickly that I'm the kind of person who is overly passionate almost to a fault, and I can't expect that from anyone I bring in. So I kind of halved what I do and to make it very doable. But then I realized my space only can handle 2. So the next step is we're working on buying a bigger building. That should be in the works, and I'll know November 20th if I got that building or not. Awesome. But yeah, we're going to get a bigger facility and modernize everything. And so we're going to have a really cool center for anyone who needs any kind of wellness care.
I think that's awesome. We're in similar places in our businesses where it's like you go from the mom and pop to the scalable.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, how do we build those systems in? Like, how do we do the front end? How do we get people to tell more and more people more and more of the right people to walk in the door? How do we find the right employees? And it's such a fascinating shift because before you start doing that, before you start making that change, it's just all about basically like, how hard can I work?
Right.
Like the harder I work, the more I can do. But that transition where it's like, okay, it can't be about me anymore.
Right.
Like, what happens if you pull human Jeremy, human Karen out of the picture? What happens?
Is your machine going to still work?
Yeah, and until the answer is yes, like,
you're not there yet.
You're not there.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet, but
yeah, me neither.
It's super hard to, like, I think you said this one in another podcast, like, what about taking a vacation? Like, it kills me when I come back and someone was like, yeah, I waited 4 days for you. I was like, I gave you names of other chiropractors and they waited 4 days in dire pain because they wanted my hands. So yeah, that'll be a good feeling when I know I can leave and know that they're in great hands.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that will happen, and I look forward. So one of the big last questions I always ask, and so we fed right into it, is what what does Drummond Chiropractic look like 5 years from now?
In a bigger facility with rocking associates. Yep.
Same philosophy, same approach.
Yeah.
More people and a larger facility.
Right.
Take 30 seconds or a minute and let someone know if they've been listening to this conversation and just want to find you, how they can do so.
You can do so many ways. You can go to drummondchiropractic.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm Karin with an I because I care, Drummond. I also have the Drummond Chiropractic Facebook page. If you Google Karin Drummond and Drummond Chiropractic, I right up there. So, or even Chiropractic Bloomington, I should be up there too.
Cool. So, Karin, I learned a lot about medicine and a little bit about business, and I just really appreciate you taking an hour out of your time in your little busy life to come talk on Scratch Entrepreneur.
This was so fun. Thank you for having me again. Yeah.
Special thanks to Karin Drummond for taking the time to share the Drummond Chiropractic story with us. If you enjoyed this podcast, there's a couple of things we need you to do right now. Please subscribe to Scratch Entrepreneur on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Please share this show with friends if you enjoyed it. And finally, please join us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Scratch Entrepreneur, where the conversation continues, the after shows are saved, and lots of additional resources for entrepreneurs and business owners are available to you. That's patreon.com/Scratch Entrepreneur. Until the next time, we truly appreciate you listening.